Today, I'm going to be speaking on the topic of finding the door to your abundance. I know that October is your prosperity month, and that's the theme of your month. And so far, you've already had two speakers speaking on this topic. You had Rev Karen Russo a couple of weeks ago, and last week you had Leslie Goodwin over here that's holding high watch for us right now. And so I'm going to be following in their footsteps. And today, I'm going to be speaking on the topic of finding the door to your abundance. Now, you know, I know that some of you guys are reading the book by Karen Russo, The Money Keys. And so you might be thinking that, gee, now I've got a money key, and Scott's talking about doors. Doors have locks, so maybe the money key is the door to unlock my door to the abundance, and I've got it all. Got everything that I need. Yay! Well, not quite so. And the reason is because the door to your abundance is never locked. There is no lock on that door. You just have to open it and walk through. But the truth is, and here's the catch, the truth is that there are many doors that are available for you to walk through. And many of them lead to different parts of your abundance, whether it's money or health or however that is going for you. But there are some doors that lead you away from your abundance. And sometimes we pick those. And so what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about figuring out which of those doors that you should be going through. Now, you're probably sitting there going, doors, doors, doors. Where are all these doors that Scott's speaking about? Well, let me tell you. You're probably familiar with a metaphor from the Bible. It's out of the book of John. It says, "My Father's kingdom has many rooms." So I'm going to be working with this metaphor. I'm not exactly sure what Jesus meant when he said it himself, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to give it a slightly different meaning. In my way of looking at this, my Father's house means my life. Right? It's your life, your particular instance of your life. And the rooms within my Father's house, there's many, many of them. In fact, there's an infinite number of them. And they're all the possibilities of where you can go in your life. All these different rooms. And we experience our life by walking through them. One room to another room to another room. And we walk through doors in order to get there. Now, sometimes those doors or those rooms are laid out like a corridor where it goes very straight from here to there. Well, that's kind of like when you're in your life and you know exactly where you're going, and no matter what, you seem to be following this path, and you're kind of looking, for me, I'd get kind of bored, and I'd be looking for an exit out of that one, right? Because that just seems like a little bit of a boring life. And then sometimes, you're walking around, you go from this room, and then you go to this room, and then you go to this room, and then you go, wow, look at that. I seem to recognize this podium. I was there just a few minutes ago. Well, that's kind of like our life when we are, maybe changing jobs. Our life is always changing, and we go from job one to job two. But I get into job two, and I look back, and I go, I'm having the same problems in this new job as I had in the last job. Or maybe you got a divorce, and now you're in a new relationship, and you go, wow, this new person looks a whole lot like the last person I just divorced. Right? How does that happen? Well, it's because we're going around in a circle. We're just repeating the same thing. And we want to get out of that circle. And then sometimes we're in a room, and what we find is we've got many doors arrayed in front of us. Many, many, many doors. And we're trying to figure out which door we're going to go through. And that's really what we want to talk about today, is when we see that, how do we decide what door we're going to go to? Because the truth is we can't just sit here in a puddle. We have to choose a door and go through that door. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be telling you about how we choose those doors today. And what I've found through life is we really kind of have three different ways that we choose the doors. And it has to do with how we see the universe and our relationship to it. So sometimes in our lives, we're living a life where the universe, we feel like the universe is happening to us, right? This big universe out here, we're down here, and we have no control, right? Whatever is going to happen is going to happen, and depending on how our life is going in that moment, we might be thinking that, the universe is just kind of indifferent to us. We're just kind of flying around in there and doesn't really care. Or if our life is not going particularly well at the moment, we might be thinking that the universe is actually not just indifferent, but maybe even hostile towards us. But that's not actually the truth. There's actually a different relationship that we have, which is what we teach here in our churches. But that is oftentimes the place where people come into our churches from looking for a new experience. That's what happened to me. I walked into a church for the first time, a religious science church, 15 years ago, and I was looking to change my life, right? And that was good because they said, change your thinking, change your life. And I was really there looking for it. But oftentimes, I think when we do that, when we're looking for that change, we're looking for it because we feel like we're a victim somehow. And what I want to tell you is that nobody is really a victim. That's not really true. Sometimes, though, we may have been victimized. Right? There's a difference between being a victim and being victimized. And so we teach, as they come into the church, we teach them that the reason that they feel that way is because they feel like they're separated from spirit. I'm here and God's out there. I'm not the same as God, and therefore whatever God's doing, I'm just kind of reacting. Well, I know that for me, I came in and I was really looking to change my life when I came into Religious Science Church for the first time. And they started telling me that, you can change your life, and you can do it differently. But I was set in this thought of life happening to me. And so I want to give you an example of how I was thinking at that time. I went to a prosperity workshop, and one of the things they did at that workshop is they asked us to go back in time to our earliest memory of money. And where was it that I had picked up a concept about money for the first time? Well, my earliest memory of really how money worked was I was about 7 years old. And when I was 7, I had been living with my aunt for a year. My mother and I were separated. She was all the way in Anchorage, Alaska, and I was all the way down in Texas. And after a year, she was able to get everything together so she could come and get my brother and I, but she was doing it on a shoestring budget. She really had just enough money to get us home. And so when she came, we ended up having to take a Greyhound bus from Texas to Seattle. Now, for those of you who know Greyhound buses, in the 60s, there were no express buses, existed. And so by the time we got to Salt Lake City, I'd been on that bus for over 2 days. And I was 7 years old, and I was bored to tears. And so we got off to get something to eat, and I remember I saw a toy, and it was just a little toy. It wasn't some big thing. It was just a little thing. I just wanted something to distract me, and I asked my mom if she would buy me that toy. And she said no, because she didn't have the money for the toy. Now, the reason I remember this so vividly is not that I was denied a toy, right? That's not it. The reason I remember it so vividly is because of my mother's reaction. It wasn't that she just said no. It was that she really wanted to give me that toy, right? She had been missing out of my life for a year, and now she was dragging me on a bus for days. She would have loved to give me a toy. But we didn't have the money. Now, what I took away from that was a belief about money. A belief that said if I didn't have money, based on my mother's reaction, I was going to live in guilt, disappointment, and shame. And nobody wants to live in guilt, disappointment, and shame. And so my life from that point forward, I was the kid that mowed lawns and shoveled snow and cleaned, apartment buildings. I don't care what. I just wanted to have money. I was always that way. But, in order to look at this and kind of figure out what's going on, we need to kind of understand what's happening with that. And so out of Karen Russo's book, she says, the idea that money is controlled by others is a superstition that sets up a situation with victims and perpetrators. It's so true. And in that particular instance, it was a superstition that led to a victim, right? A superstition is where you believe that the world works this way, and in reality, it works this way. And so, if you believe that the world's over here and you have to throw some salt over your shoulder or turn around 3 times or whatever it is, and then the world's going to react that way, I hate to tell you, it really doesn't work that way, right? But the world, the way we teach it, is the way the world really works, which is we have to change the cause. And if we understand that, we can actually make some change in our life. If we're over here in superstition, we're just following some rules that don't really make any sense and don't change our lives. And so we need to get out of that place of life happens to us and get to a new place. How about life happens for us, right? And that's what we teach when people come new into our classes and our workshops. We start teaching people that life does happen for them. We teach them the creative process, and we tell them that you get to be in control of your life, right? You've all heard this. Change your thinking, change your life. It means I'm in control. And that's great. And the thing that we tell them is that you got to quit blaming other people, and you got to take responsibility for yourself, and you have to learn the real way that life is created. We teach you the creative process, and we teach you how to use it. That's all happening in the workshops and the classes here at your center. Financial freedom, other classes like that, those are the tools that you're learning. You're getting a whole bunch of tools for your toolbox, and that's great. And so we focus on the power of your word, and all of that is true, and it's wonderful, and it's perfect. And there's a small little issue with it. And that's the issue is that if we go back to the metaphor of my father's house has many rooms, it's kind of like, okay, you have a toolbox, and you get into this room, and you're going to go that way, and you walk to the end of the room, and you go, there's no door here. But that's okay, because I've got a toolbox. So I take out my tools, and I cut a hole in the door, in the wall, and I frame it, and I put a door on it, and I walk through the door. Everything's great until I get to the next room, and there's no door where I want it. And we just keep doing that process over and over again. And so the problem with control is it's a little bit exhausting. I do have control. I can make my life, and I can choose it, and I can be a little bit tired doing that. So I want to tell you about my life in that way. So when I came to religious science, and I started to learn that I could have control of my life, I said, well, I've got this job at work, and really what I want to do is I want to be that guy over there. Within 4 years, I had that job. It was 2 levels of management up. I tripled my salary. By all measures, I should have been ecstatic. I should have been doing a little jig. But what I found in my heart was that I was tired. I found in my heart that it wasn't just the stuff I was doing at the job that was exhausting me, but it was all this control that I was creating into my life that was taking a lot of energy. And so I decided to change the way that I did things and the way I released things. And I decided that instead of looking down at a path that I was going in and walking on that path, what I wanted to do was look up. Okay? Because when we look up, we see the stars. And when we look up, we feel the awe that's inspired by the universe. When I look up, I feel my connection to the beloved, to God. And that's what I want so fully in my life. And so let me tell you how I went about doing that. So there's a third way of looking at the universe. And that third way is that, we first had life is happening to us and life is happening for us, and now we have life is happening through us. Right? Life is occurring through us, or saying it another way, it's just that we're allowing Spirit to create through us. Now, Spirit is going to be creating around you all of the time. You can't stop Spirit from creating. But you want to allow Spirit to create through you. And it will only do it if you allow it, because we have choice in our life. Now, how do we do that? Well, Rev Karen Russo, in her book, she quotes somebody called Angela Montano, who says, there's a whole story in the book, and she says, how do I trust God with everything the same way that I trust money with everything? How do I trust God with everything the same way I trust money with everything? And she talks about how she trusted money. And I think we do it the same way. She trusts money to put food on the table, to put a shelter over her head, to give her transportation however she needs it. She trusts money that she'll have money if she's in a relationship to do great things with whoever she's in a relationship with. And if not, well, you can travel the world. Have a great time on your own. That's okay. I've got money. She trusted money that if she was sick, she could go to a doctor, and if the doctor didn't have a cure, that she could still be taken care of in a hospital by money. How wonderful it is to have trust like that. But if we're trusting money, we're trusting the effect. We're not trusting the cause, and the cause is God. So how do we switch over our trust from money to God? Well, I want to tell you a little bit about my father's house. In this analogy, this is the one where you walk into the room and you have a whole array of doors. Which door do you pick? Right? We've decided we're not going to cut holes in the wall anymore, right? That's gone. So we have to pick a door. How do we pick the door? Well, that's the whole point of this talk, is how do I pick the door? And I told you I was going to tell you, so I'm going to tell you right now. It's a secret. It's not really. The secret is you let Spirit choose the door. You let Spirit choose the door. How do you do that? Well, Leslie told you last week that, in order to embody the truth, if I can see it, I can have it, and that we need to have our spiritual practices in order to embody it. Well, it's the same thing. Our spiritual practices put us in a place where we can listen to God. Because normally, I got this tape rolling. I'm speaking so loud at God, I want. I don't settle I don't get to that place where I can listen to the still, small voice inside. It's whispering, my beloved, this is where you go. I want to tell you a story about how I found that truth out to be in my life. 12 years ago, Gabriel and I decided we were going to adopt children. So we decided we were going to become foster parents, and then we were going to adopt. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. One is you can have a list of qualities that you're going to check off, because there are lots and lots of kids who need homes, right? If you wish to talk to me afterwards about the foster care experience or how to adopt, I would love to do that, because there are lots of children who need help. But, you know, when you do the foster care, you could go down that path of checking off qualities. Oh, I want somebody like this. What we decided to do at that point in my life on that topic was we decided to let God choose. That we would take whichever boys came. And so here we were on Saturday before we were going to get our license on Monday, and they were already talking to us about boys. We had told them that we wanted 2 boys, preferably brothers, who were 6 or under. Right? So here they are on Saturday, and they say, we've got the perfect 2 boys for you. They're 13 and 16. We said, okay. If that's where God's leading me, that's okay. So we did. We told the social workers, you know, since we're gay parents, we want to talk to them, especially since they're teenagers, and make sure they're okay with that. And so we set up a meeting on Sunday, but we already had a meeting set up at church that we had to leave early from. It was our prosperity program meeting. How appropriate. And so we left that meeting. I went down to the car. I found that I needed something that I'd left in the room, so I went back up after that, and I found that the people there in the room were praying for Gabriel and I. They were praying for us, not that these were the right kids or the wrong kids. They were praying that God would guide us in this process. And I have to say that God did guide us. We did choose those 2 boys. They moved into our house 2 days later. A year later, we adopted them. A few years after that, we adopted another 6-year-old boy. And now my 3 sons, somebody's over there with a saxophone, my 3 sons are 28, 25, and 14, and I have a 3-year-old granddaughter. And God led me to that. I didn't choose it. I couldn't have chosen it. I was looking for little ones. He gave me teenagers. God did. It did. I'm so blessed. And I'm so happy. And what I want to say is that that was my first opportunity to know abundance in a different form than money. Abundance in your life is so much more than money. Abundance in your life is God leading you through family, through a community like this that will pray for you. It's by having all that you need in order to move forward with joy, confidence, and ease in your life. And that's what God, if God wants anything, God wants that for each and every person, no matter who. So I want to just switch for a second to a prayer, before I do the prayer, to a poem by Rumi, my favorite Sufi mystic poet. And it's called The Guest House. And it goes along really well, I think, with the talk. And it says, this being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So with that, let's just go inside. And I drop down inside of me to that place that knows the power, the presence, the life that God is in all its expansiveness, and all the love and all the joy and all the peace, because I know that that's all that there is. There's not God in something else. There's not God that's separate from us. There's not God that's happening to us. There's only a God that lives inside of us. The life and the power and the presence that Spirit is the truth at the very core of us. And so we are all that love, all that peace, all that joy that God is. We are everything that God is. And so I know as we walk through our life, in all of the steps that we take, that we are led forward by that power, that presence. There's nothing that we have to do. There's nothing that's being called for us to do. It's just the truth of who we are. It's just the truth of the life and the power and the presence that God is moving through us and as us, that when we find a set of doors in front of us, there is a voice beckoning to us. There's a spotlight pointing to the door that we need to take that leads us to our abundance, that leads us to the exact right place where life fits us like a glove, that life is divinely inspired, that life is more magnificent than we know, and that life leads us forward with joy, with confidence, and with ease. And so for knowing that truth of my life, of your life, of every person's life on this planet, I just give thanks. And I release this prayer into the law, knowing that it's already fulfilled in the mind that God is, and I say it is good and very good, and so it is.